Dynamite on Wednesday was a stacked card on paper. Maybe because Tony Khan wanted to give the fans in New Orleans a special show. They were supposed to run there 2 years ago, but then the pandemic happened and their rescheduled date in January got pushed back to April. So they finally made it there, and they were rewarded with a hot crowd that really only died for 2 segments, the Marina Shafir squash and the ending of the show, which was really underwhelming after Tony Khan had promoted there being an overrun for this week's show. That overrun turned out to be 3 minutes with their version of the Great Khali showing up and attacking Samoa Joe. Up to that point, it was a very good show. Some great wrestling and another hot angle with Wardlow trying to get at MJF. Samoa Joe beat Minoru Suzuki in the main event to win the Ring of Honor television title for the first time in his career. Suzuki only just won the title a couple of weeks ago at the Supercard of Honor show, but I have to assume he's on his way back to Japan soon, so it makes sense that they would want to get the belt off of him. It was a nice token for him, being the first championship that he ever won on American soil, and it gave us something of a dream match that we've never seen before with Joe and Suzuki. Instead of letting fans enjoy the moment when it was over and Joe got his big win, Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt, they had promised a big surprise for Joe, and they weren't lying. The lights went out, and when they came back on, standing in the ring behind Joe was Satnam Singh, the first Indian-born player ever to be drafted by the NBA. He never did play in the NBA. He played in their summer league, but he was signed by AEW last September. He is a huge man. He's well over 7 feet tall. They debuted him the way that they did because they're trying to make inroads in the Indian market. This was also the week after the Warner Media merger with Discovery became official. And AEW was on television on Eurosport India, which is owned by Discovery. So Tony Khan wanted to do something that would get over big in that market. The problem is, when you do the lights out gimmick, it should be with somebody that people actually recognize. When the lights came back on, nobody knew who the hell this guy was, and nobody cared. He gave Joe a clothesline, then he applied the dreaded vice grip, like Great Khali used to do. There were better ways to introduce this man to television. They chose one of the worst. This was something straight out of what you would see on a WWE show, and not in a good way. Singh is going to be the muscle for Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt. Fine. I understand they may have business reasons for doing what they did, but as a viewer, this was a misfire. As an ending, it fell completely flat, and I wish they would have allowed the moment with Joe to breathe a little bit. His first Ring of Honor championship of any kind in how many years has it been? 15 years? Probably, maybe more. It would have been nice to just show a replay, let the moment breathe, let him raise the title and celebrate, let the fans have their moment because, they were cheering and they were happy to see him win, but it's just, and this, by the way, this is another issue I have with AEW sometimes. You've heard me talk about how they don't allow things to breathe. There's always an interruption or it's on to the next one. And these are valid criticisms. I know the diehard AEW supporters don't take very kindly to criticism. To them, AEW can do no wrong. But these mistakes can be avoided in the future by actually listening to these critiques. And to his credit, Tony Khan went on Busted Open Radio on Friday, and he admitted that he made a mistake with that ending, although he didn't accept all of the blame for it. Here's what he said. Credit to WrestlingNews.co for the transcription. I could have done it better. It's one of those things. I wish I had done it a little differently. The fans are always going to be right, so if the fans don't like something, sometimes there's some things about it where you're trying to get heat, and people aren't always going to love it. There were things about it I probably should have done differently now that I see it in hindsight. To be honest, it wasn't my idea to turn the lights out, but I am the ultimate filter. I'm the person who everything goes through. I put the outline of the show together, and when I came in on Wednesday, I thought it was the best outline I've ever put together. One of them, at least. As much strong wrestling as you could possibly fit into the program. I thought up until that point, The show is excellent, and that was the one thing we kind of went off on. People might not have liked it. Satnam is an important person for us. It was important to debut him in a meaningful way with Jay Lethal. He is going to be a force to be reckoned with. At the same time, turning the lights off for somebody people didn't recognize, it's a great point. The person who brought up turning the lights off has over 30 years of experience in pro wrestling. When they brought it up to me, I was only looking at the pros, and I should have thought about the cons, because that is my job. Well, his name is Khan. Because that is my job as the person who decides what goes in and filters out these ideas. We all had these people in the room, and somehow, not one person, when that idea came up, brought up the negatives. Then when we did it, all of a sudden, all of the negatives were very obvious. I didn't want it to loom over a lot of the great stuff on the show. I don't think it has or it will, because there was a lot of great wrestling on that show. So I am really excited about that, but the fans are always going to be right. I think it's one of those times where I appreciated what their feedback was. Now, as I am in my third year of doing this, I would not do that the way that we did it again. And these are the things you learn going into year 3 that I would do differently in year 4 or year 5. It's nice to hear him recognize the fact that it didn't work. In the past, when AEW has tried something that failed miserably, they've pivoted away from it, as they did with Brandy's Nightmare Collective stuff, or after the horrible Dynamite finish where the Dark Order laid out all the members of the Elite. They do recognize when something doesn't work, and they try not to do it again. Whoever that person is, though, with 30 years of wrestling experience that he referenced, he's got to make sure to throw that out there, that it was their idea to put the lights out. He only approved, for all the times that we have seen the lights out gimmick used on this show, that is a Tony Khan specialty. So I'm not even sure about that. They've done it so many times, you would almost listen to him talking about it here and think that, well, it's never been done before, but sure, let's give it a shot. We see it every other week, the lights go out on this show. But I love it. I love how that wasn't my idea. I only approved it. Look, if you're going to take responsibility for something, then just take responsibility for it. It's a bad look to even mention that the idea came from somebody else. What is gained by doing that? You approved it. It's your show. You approved it. Just say, I fucked up, and it won't happen again. There's no need for him to passive-aggressively lay blame on somebody else for the idea. If you thought it was a bad idea, it became your idea the moment you gave it the green light. So that was awkward for him to even say any of that. On Twitter, he responded to a fan who proposed a different idea for how they could have handled Singh's debut by saying, I saw a bunch of fans say that after the fact, and I realized after that it would have worked better than what we actually did. Again, dozens of experienced people in our production meeting, and nobody pointed that out. And the idea came from fans. It goes to show how smart fans are. How do you think those people, those 30 people that were sitting in that production meeting with him, feel when they hear stuff like that? Again, why even mention that? But now I see people attacking him for either, for sucking up to the fans. So you really can't win. You're either a suck-up who relies too much on what the fans think, or you don't listen to your audience enough. It's a no-win situation for the guy. But I do appreciate that he at least recognizes that this just didn't work. The way they used him last night on the Battle of the Belt show, this Satnam Singh guy, was actually more effective than what they did on Wednesday. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but Tony Khan will have yet another huge announcement to make on Dynamite this week. What can Tony Khan's big announcement be? Well, let's run through the options here. I think there's a slim chance it could be talent related. I doubt that's what it is. There's still plenty of free agents out there. I'm sure he's not done signing people, but I don't get the sense that this is going to be a talent announcement. It could be the announcement of trios titles, which is going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. More likely, it has to do with some sort of a business deal. It could be a new television deal for Ring of Honor or some kind of streaming deal. It could be the announcement of their first live event in the UK. coming off that big WWE announcement this week about their first stadium show, major event in so long. Maybe AEW will finally announce their first UK trip. There's a rumor going around on social media of, and I don't know where it started, but there's a rumor going around of a possible joint show, like a super show, with AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling sometime in June. But I have not seen anything to substantiate this. Where some of this stuff comes from, I have no idea. See, I think Tony Khan has made an offer like Elon Musk did this week to buy Twitter so that he can purge it of all the bots and all the fake accounts that are saying mean things about AEW. I think that his independent study is completed. He's going to announce his findings and announce the fact that he has made a formal offer to buy Twitter.